It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. From this moment on, America's decline is over. And very shortly, you're going to see a nation better than it's ever been. All steel workers will keep their jobs, and all facilities in the United States will remain open and thriving. If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
The assassination that wasn't, and how our world was forever changed following that moment in Butler, Pennsylvania, exactly 1 year ago. Good evening, I'm Brian Entin, and welcome to NewsNation's special investigation, The Plot to Kill Trump, 1 year later. It is hard to forget that moment. It is one of a handful in history, a moment with so much significance that you remember exactly where you were and what you were doing when you first heard about it. When shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks targeted then-candidate Trump from a rooftop a mere 400 feet away, striking the 45th president in the ear, missing his head by less than a quarter of an inch. Tonight on NewsNation, we are diving into the shooter's descent into madness, how he went from an A student who scored in the top 1% on his SATs to a killer, as he remains a mystery along with his motive. And why haven't authorities told us more about him? Even President Trump has asked that question. And why wasn't he flagged by law enforcement, by the FBI, or the Secret Service leading up to the assassination attempt? I will ask a member of the Congressional task force investigating the assassination attempt how Crooks managed to stay off the grid and how others just like him could be plotting right now. And we have an eyewitness that was on the ground that day, steps from President Trump as the shots rained out. What she heard from the Secret Service members huddled on top of President Trump during the chaos and the confusion. And tonight, President Trump addressed the assassination attempt. We'll show you what he said. That's in just a couple of minutes. It's all in tonight's special NewsNation investigation. But first, it is time to go back to that moment in Butler, Pennsylvania, the minute-by-minute details in the plot to kill Trump. July 13th, departing on a trip that would shake a nation.
Very lively environment.
Very lively. Everybody just couldn't wait, just anticipated him coming.
In Butler, Pennsylvania, the crowd is also gathering.
Going around.
5:51 p.m., Pennsylvania State Police notify the Secret Service a man is spotted on the ground with a rangefinder. He's lost in the crowd. A minute later, 5:52, Secret Service agents shared the report with their sniper team and ground agents. At this point, law enforcement is unaware the man has a gun.
Please welcome the next president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
11 minutes later, 6:03, the 45th president of the United States takes the stage.
This is a big crowd. This is a big, beautiful crowd.
6:09, as Donald Trump is speaking, spectators alert officers. A gunman is on the roof.
There he is right there. Right there, see him?
Gray shirt, climbing up the metal roof on the building right beside us. And didn't know what he was doing, trying to alert cops and police.
2 minutes later, 6:11 and 21 seconds, a local officer is seen walking along the edge of the building.
Officer,
Chaos, more people yelling that a man presents a grave danger, desperate to share what they're seeing. Others fleeing. One of the Secret Service sniper teams has changed positions and appears to spot something, just moments before the first shot is heard.
if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Ready? Move! Up! Move! Go! Up! Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Move it to the stair.
Stair, get ready. Stair, get ready. We ready? Are we good? Shooters down. Are we good to move?
We're clear.
Let's move. Let's move.
We're clear.
Come on. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold that in your head. It's bloody. So we got to move to the closet. Let me get my shoes.
Okay.
Watch out. Wait.
Let's go back to the exact moment. The gunman fires, an echo is heard.
Take a look at what happened. Take a look what happened.
A second shot, and then as the third comes, Trump getting to the ground. 10 seconds later, as the Secret Service covers Donald Trump, there are more screams. Law enforcement crosses the stage.
Move his hair. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready? Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Shooters down. Are we good to move?
We're clear.
Let's move.
We're clear.
I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold that in your head. It's bloody. So we got to move to the closet.
And with a composure documented for the ages, Donald Trump urges his supporters to fight. The crowd is discovering others have been hit. Corey Comparator is dead. The former fire chief and father dove on top of his family, saving their lives, but losing his. James Koppenhaver, 74, and David Dutch, 57, critically wounded. 2.5 minutes after shots fired, Trump's huddle whisks him from the scene.
USA! USA! USA!
The entire drama playing out live on NewsNation.
That is remarkable. You have just witnessed history live from this Trump event. This is a Trump campaign event just days from the RNC. Former President Trump potentially hit by gunfire. We have to confirm, but he is still raising his arm in what looks to be courage, confidence, saying that he's okay to that crowd.
The protective column of his detail makes its way to Butler Memorial Hospital that's being cleared to triage the unthinkable. A Trump rally goer seeking treatment for heat exposure, seeing armed agents, discovering what's happening.
We're front row, and my friend saw blood coming out of his head.
Oh my God.
There he is. There he is. There he is.
Oh, thank God.
He's walking. He's walking.
8:50 p.m., doctors finish treating Donald Trump, and he heads to the airport in Pittsburgh. His life-altering day ending just the way it began, with Donald Trump on the campaign trail. His team posting this video a mere 6+ hours after the shooting, touching down in New Jersey. And just after dawn Sunday morning, Trump addressed his supporters on Truth Social, thanking them for the prayers and thanking God. And among the tens of thousands on the ground that fateful day in Butler, Pennsylvania, was journalist Selena Zito. She was invited to the rally by the president, set to interview him at the Butler Farm Show grounds after his speech. That, of course, didn't happen, with gunshots ringing out just 8 minutes after President Trump took the stage. Selena was just 4 feet away from the stage as this unfolded. Here you can see her American flag cowboy boots. Those are her boots. A Trump campaign staffer on top of her. He tackled her to the ground to make sure that she was not caught in the crossfire. And Selena Zito joins me live now. Selena, it's nice to see you. This is Selena's book, Butler. Her daughter actually took the picture on the cover, which is incredible. I have so many questions for you, Selena, but first I want to play for you what President Trump said just a couple of minutes ago as he got off Air Force One. This is what he said about the one-year mark since the attempted assassination. Take a listen.
On this one-year anniversary of Butler, what was going through your mind this morning when you woke up? I know that you're praising God you're alive, but a lot of people want to know how you're taking this day on this one-year anniversary.
God was protecting me. Maybe because God wanted to see our country do better or do really well, make America great again. But God was protecting me, Brian. I'll tell you, it's the more you think about it, the more you see it. But no, I don't like to think about it much. You know, I have a job to do, so I don't like to think about it much. It's a little bit of a dangerous profession being president.
So you can understand, Selena, why President Trump says he doesn't like to think about it much. What is it like for you 1 year later? I mean, you were right there.
Well, watching your footage, I've never watched the footage before. Seeing myself standing there, it was a little bit surreal. I was standing in the buffer that day because I wasn't supposed to be standing there. The morning started that I was going to interview him 5 minutes before the event, and then it changed to 5 minutes after the event, and then it changed, fly to Bedminster, and I will do the interview. So that's why myself and my daughter, you can see both of our sets of legs there, are right there by him because we were supposed to leave with the motorcade. And I kept working. I remember thinking in the moment, okay, I'm here for a reason and I have purpose, and that is to cover history. I wasn't thinking about a book at that time. That didn't hit me until months later. But, you know, what he just said right now about he doesn't like to think about it, and he talks about God. Now, President Trump called me very early the next morning. And interestingly, he said, Selena, this is Donald Trump. And like, you know, his voice is pretty distinctive. You know, it's Donald Trump. And he said, are you okay? Is your daughter okay? And gee, I'm really sorry I didn't get to do that interview. And I was thinking, you've been shot. So I think we're good, sir. He would go on to call me 7 times that morning. Well, I should say throughout the day. And we talked a lot about God. We talked about purpose and being spared at that moment. Does that mean he has purpose? A lot of it was working through what happened, and I gave him the space to be able to do that. In the last phone call that we had, I asked him, sir, why did you say fight, fight, fight? And he said, well, in that moment, that wasn't about me. That wasn't about Donald Trump. That was about everything that America stands for, as someone who was the former president and as someone who might be president again. America has always stood for vitality and strength and courage under fire. And I knew that the country needed to see that the country was okay and that we would go on. And so I think it's really interesting a year later to go back to purpose, to go back to strength. But I just interviewed him a few days ago, and he still doesn't like to talk about it, but it has a lot to do with Corey Compatore.
Yeah, which is understandable. I mean, it's traumatic, and then to think about that firefighter losing his life, it's terrible. I want to show the picture again, Selena. It's an incredible photo where you can see your cowboy boots, and it shows those American flag cowboy boots, and it shows just how close you were to all of this happening. I'm curious what you think, because this has just developed in the last couple of days. Yeah, there's the photo right there. Unbelievable. I mean, wow. What do you think about the fact that these Secret Service officers, there's 6 of them who were suspended, but no one was fired? You were so close. Are you surprised that no one was terminated?
I'm surprised, but not yet. I think that more will come. I think as the more that this is unraveled and we understand why wasn't there communication between the Secret Service and local law enforcement. You know, why was local law enforcement on the inside of the building? Why weren't they on the top of the building? There's so many unanswered questions. I mean, I think this thing needs to be vetted more, and I suspect that there will be more accountability with this new administration.
Yeah, and we're going to dig into a lot of that over the next 45 minutes in this special. Selena Zito, author of the new book, Butler, The Untold Story of the near assassination of Donald Trump and the fight for America's heartland. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
It's my honor. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Take a look at what happened.
All right, that moment right there, some say that it forever changed history, but why would a 20-year-old honor student with a bright future in front of him throw it all away? Next, we are diving into Thomas Crooks, his descent into madness, how his bizarre behavior intensified in the months before the shooting, the warning signs his own father saw. There are new details. Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. News Nation, the plot to kill Trump 1 year later continues right after this.
Hello, my name is Thomas Crooks, and it has always been my passion to create and build things of my own. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and my academic goals, my passion for building things, my love of cooking with my family, and lastly, what I hope to achieve in this course.
Certainly weird to see that now. A quiet community college student in 2022. In just 2 years, Thomas Crooks would do the unthinkable, traveling to Butler, Pennsylvania, mounting a roof, and firing 8 bullets toward President Donald Trump. What made the 20-year-old nursing home aide turn into a would-be assassin? A recent report by the New York Times deeply examining the last years of Crooks' life, putting together the pieces of the quiet unraveling of the man who almost killed Trump. The investigation finding that he went through a gradual and largely hidden transformation, operating in secret, using different names and encrypted networks as he planned to attack the then presidential candidate, the amateur marksman becoming a regular at his local gun range, even attempting to build bombs in his own bedroom. Crooks was able to hit the president's ear, killing a bystander and wounding 2 others in the process before being shot dead by the Secret Service, leaving much of his motive a total mystery. Still the source of so many questions right now. And one of the journalists behind this extensive new report giving us a new look at Thomas Crooks is Steve Eder, investigative reporter for the New York Times. He joins me now. Thank you so much for being with us, Steve. First of all, your article is so detailed, explains how he was smart, he got good grades, didn't seem politically involved. Were you able to pinpoint a certain moment where the switch flipped with Crooks?
Yeah, that's a good question, and thanks for having me. I don't know if there was a specific moment. I don't think it quite worked that way. I think looking back, what we did at the Times with my colleague Tunnel Hobbs, we did a close examination going back over several years, but in particular the past 2 years or so with his life in community college. I think what you see are these moments, these like threads that sort of are part of his history, where you see for example, the beginnings of certain kinds of purchases related to guns and to firearms, and doing those kind of purchases using aliases. That began, maybe 15 months out, I believe. Later, purchases of explosives, attendance at the gun club, and just sort of a quiet, secretive, drumbeat, parallel to his sort of everyday student life that was going on.
Something about him going to the gun range more than 40 times, even going on Christmas Day, and you report that he used these fake names with some of the gun purchases. Do you think there were red flags missed by law enforcement or by his parents, or was he just doing this with such secrecy that no one had any way of knowing?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say. I mean, he certainly was taking steps to proactively be careful. I think you could tell that from the reporting that he was, for example, he would use a VPN to obscure his internet usage. He was acting in a way that I think was hard to let on to people around him. I mean, that said, in our report shows how, once the investigators did enter his home that night, I mean, they did see, bomb making activity, explosive making activity, in the home and other things that upon, retrospect, would have been things that would have stood out perhaps.
Were you able to figure out motive at all, Steve, and everything you looked at? Because it seems like political motivation is sort of hard to pin down on this one.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that I think, went into this report. I had been involved in the coverage originally, in particularly trying to report on Thomas Crooks in the days after the shooting. And one of the reasons I wanted to come back to was to try to fill in some of the picture here. I thought that there were a lot of unanswered questions, and one of those things was to try to understand motive. I think that there's still unanswered questions, on the motive front. I think we were able to, through our reporting at the Times, we were able to, review a great deal of schoolwork, essays, these videos, including the one that you showed, that give little hints of who he was, but I don't think that there's anything there that, for example, our report mentions an essay that he wrote about ranked choice voting, and there's a little bit of material in there where he discusses, frustrations about polarization in American politics, but doesn't really go much further than that. So I think in terms of finding some sort of political motive, I don't think that it was there. And in terms of what we saw and what the law enforcement has said about the case. Certainly there's the mental health aspects that we also reported on that ran, as part of this.
I want to show some of your reporting. You were able to nail down some of the Google searches that he made ahead of the shooting. He looked up things like how far was Oswald from Kennedy, as well as specifics on Butler ahead of the attack. But even before that, he searched both RNC and DNC. So he searched RNC and DNC. Was there anything in your reporting that helped you figure out why he would have wanted to kill President Trump specifically?
No, I mean, the searches, the internet activity that you referenced, and the things that law enforcement had released, initially, and then our reporting kind of added to that. Looking at, there were some specific days that we were able to isolate, for example, his activity of looking at news sites, of looking at a Trump website, and then gun sites on the same day, things like that. But there was nothing there that you could look at it and say, oh, here's why. I think that still remains elusive.
Yeah, one of the big mysteries still, which is kind of crazy a year later. Investigative reporter for the New York Times, Steve Eder, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. You can read Steve's full report, the quiet unraveling of the man who almost killed Trump. It's at thenewyorktimes.com. Thank you again, Steve. All right, still to come on the plot to kill Trump 1 year later. New details just into our newsroom tonight about how the United States Secret Service failed in protecting President Trump that day in Butler, Pennsylvania. We will break down exactly what went wrong, and we will talk to a former Secret Service agent about why no one was fired and whether or not someone should be terminated for all this. That's next. Stay right here on NewsNation. So 1 year after the attempt on President Trump's life, the Secret Service announcing just days ago that it is suspending 6 personnel without pay or benefits over what they are calling operational failures. And just into our newsroom tonight, a new scathing Senate report outlining across-the-board failures by the Secret Service last year in Butler, Pennsylvania, including the Secret Service denying multiple requests for additional resources to protect then-candidate Trump. The report it goes on to say that Secret Service agents failed to communicate crucial information regarding the suspicious individual, Thomas Crooks, that could have prevented President Trump from taking the stage. The report calls out a lack of accountability, including not a single agent being fired after what happened that day in Butler, providing a rare glimpse of how these agents operate in a time of crisis. Look at this.
We're good to move.
We're clear. We're clear.
Got you, sir. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold on, your head is bloody. So we gotta move to the classroom. Wait.
And suspensions for the 6 agents range from 10 to 42 days of leave, and a source confirming to NewsNation tonight that the head and deputy head of the Pittsburgh Secret Service field office, a member of Trump's Secret Service protection detail, and also a counter sniper are among those suspended, with 2 of the agents now appealing this decision. All right, a lot has developed just within the last 24 hours. For more, I'm joined now by former Secret Service agent Mike DeGus. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Mike. First of all, I want to play something for you because you think of the man who lost his life, Corey Comparator, and his sister has spoken out, upset, it seems, that more has not been done in light of the shooting. She spoke to CBS Pittsburgh. I want to show you this, Mike.
How does something like this happen and nobody is fired? If suspending 6 people and us finding this out now is their idea of accountability, it is not. It is not. We need names.
So as someone who has been in the Secret Service, were you surprised that no one was fired, Mike?
No, well, first off, thanks for having me up here, Brian. Am I surprised by that? No, not necessarily.
Why not?
The Secret Service has a lot of stuff that it does and what it attributes to and its methodology and how it works for protection, people, of places and things. What they're doing internally doesn't necessarily play out on a global stage the way what happened with Trump there in Butler plays out on a global stage. So while you're getting news of what's happening for 6 people and suspensions, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got everything that's going on behind the scenes right now.
So do you think that there may be something happening behind the scenes where someone's going to get fired that we just don't know about yet?
Yeah, I think, Brian, that there's things that are happening, whether it's behind the scenes and somebody's probably going to get fired. They may resign. I think when you have a guy like Sean Curran take the helm as director, that's a guy whose mettle got tested when bullets started flying and has risen with Trump's appointment as director of the Secret Service. That guy is a command and control kind of guy. He's going to jump in and do what needs to be done, as you can see clearly. What he's going to do with personnel, and that's what I think he's focused. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the service has a people problem today, and they're working to fix that today.
Yeah, this new Senate report, when it talks about the fact that there were warnings and it questions why President Trump was allowed to take the stage, is that still shocking to you that someone didn't say, wait a minute, keep him off the stage while we sort this out?
Yeah, Brian, this goes back to what I was just saying about a people problem. So there's clearly breakdowns. You and I could sit and talk about the reports, the congressional reports, the investigations they've done. Obviously, the Secret Service has admitted there's a breakdown in communication and issues, and it was a total failure. It's really, I don't know what the right word is. It's amazing to me the lack of basics that were done on the outside of an outer middle perimeter conversation. And what happened here. There's certain things that could have been done with environmental manipulation. You could have done all kinds of little things, but you and I could do that in 2020 hindsight. But how that happened, they're at least speaking that it's a failure and they know it.
Yeah, and in these reports, it's come out that the Trump campaign and that then candidate Trump asked for more Secret Service, that they were nervous about threats, that they wanted them to beef up Secret Service, that they wanted the sniper teams, and apparently those requests were rejected. Do you think this has something to do? I mean, obviously President Biden was in charge at the time. I mean, were they purposely not giving Trump what he needed?
No, there's a big misconception on how that flows and functions, Brian, and I can appreciate the ask from just about anybody and everybody that thinks former President Biden would dictate the level of control over the detail and the ask for assets and people to former President Trump. But the reality is former President Trump at a rally was still former President Trump. And the way that they rank certain things dictates certain levels of assets. So he wasn't the Republican nominee until the following week, if you remember. So I'm not the slightest bit surprised on the level of assets he got. What's surprising for me, having been there, done that, and then being on the outside of this, is realistically, it's the wrong people on the team that day doing all the advance work. And I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Top Gun Maverick, but the way this works is it comes down to the pilot in the box. So that the team that does the advance that day and puts everything together and then coordinates when he's coming in and works his way into that site, whoever's in charge of that stuff and how that works, it comes down to who's there, how well trained are they, what's their experience level, have they been at the level of a Trump rally, which I think I've seen on your reporting before. I mean, Trump rallies are not like any other candidate rally. You're going to a festival, a rock concert. I mean, it's a ton of people, and you got to have the right team that has the right level of experience and understands the academics of protection, because it's literally an academic process. But if you haven't played at that game, that level, you're going to have issues.
We only have a couple seconds left. I'm just curious, you mentioned you're on the outside now, but you still know a lot of people on the inside. Should we as Americans feel confident now that the Secret Service has gotten its act together a year later?
Yeah, I think you're talking about turning, like any governmental agency, I don't care how big or small, you're moving the Titanic around the iceberg. But having said that, they are steering the ship in the right direction, and I think they've done a lot of internal work. They've already hit on several of the recommendations from the report that they've installed, and they're cleaning house. And I think when you put a guy like Sean Kern as director, absolutely let him work. It doesn't happen overnight, just like anything else. It takes a little bit of time for it to start cascading in waterfall effect all the way through, from the top all the way down to the rank and file out there. So yeah, give them the time.
Mike DeGus, appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you.
All right, shooter Thomas Crooks, he was flagged multiple times on the day of the assassination attempt. So why wasn't he taken out? Next, I'm joined by a congressman on the task force investigating the assassination attempt, the answers that he is still seeking, and if he thinks he'll ever actually get them. That's next on News Nation.
While we understand the logistics and the things about technology and equipment and communications that need to be better, we have not received the information that we requested that would relate to understanding who these people are, where they came from, and what they might be thinking about or the motive when they undertook this attempt.
That is Congresswoman Laurel Lee back in December calling out the FBI and the DOJ for what she says was stonewalling the bipartisan congressional committee looking into the attempted assassination attempts of President Trump. And look, the Secret Service has a zero-fail mission. That means that they do not get to have a bad day ever. And we know the agency failed to meet that mission on July 13th of last year because of the task force's final report. But that same report failed in one significant way, and some members have said essentially that they were set up to fail because of all the information that they were not provided. Republican Representative Pat Fallon of Texas joins me now. He's a member of the now concluded Congressional Task Force on the attempted assassination of President Trump. Congressman, thank you for being with us. It really is interesting when you look at this and you think about the things that you were supposed to do this investigation, but there was all this stuff that you weren't given and you were told that you couldn't have. The ballistic analysis, Thomas Crooks's body. Why do you think that is? Why were you stonewalled?
Yeah, that really perplexed me because this was a bipartisan commission. We weren't trying to score political points. We were trying to prevent this from ever happening again. And I suspect, you don't know for sure, but I think this FBI and this Department of Justice under President Trump would have been far more likely to have openly cooperated with the task force. Joe Biden's didn't. That's just a fact. They didn't. I don't know why they didn't. The fact that we couldn't even, the FBI wouldn't even tell us what whether the rifle was a red dot scope or if it was a magnified scope for weeks and then months. Who signed off in the Secret Service on the actual plan? We didn't find that out for months as well. And when you talk about zero fail mission, you're absolutely right. And in order to succeed in a zero fail mission, you have to have redundancies. And they had redundancies, all right, but they were all redundancies in failure. There should have been, the high ground should have been mitigated with the water tower behind where the president was going to speak. There should have been somebody on the roof. There should have been cameras on the roof. There should have been drones. There should have been anti-drone technology. They should have been with the locals and cleared the AGR complex to make sure there was nobody. I don't know, many people don't realize that there were hundreds of people closer to the president in the unsecure area on the AGR property than the shooter was. It's just that they weren't bad guys. The shooter was. So my supposition this whole time had been, this wasn't the first rooftop that was unsecure. It was simply the first rooftop that had a bad guy on it. And this was bound to happen considering how lackadaisical and complacent the Secret Service had become.
Yeah, so you mentioned it was the Biden DOJ at the time when you all were trying to get all of this evidence. Is there any chance now that some of it could be released? It's almost like, do we need to have another commission now that it's possible maybe you'd be able to get your hands on some of these things?
Yeah, I don't know if we need to fire up another commission, but we certainly can do it from the Oversight Committee. I've spoken with Chairman Comer about this. We could have a hearing and ask any things any T's that we want to cross and any I's that we want to dot. We could do that because this was a just dramatic failure. And the fact that this was, like your former guest just said, yeah, it was former President Trump at the time. However, it was very unique in so much as he was the former president that was the leading candidate to be the next president and had a nation state threat, namely Iran. They were trying and looking to assassinate him because of things and actions he took while he was president. He should have had the security commiserate to what a sitting president has. That goes into the failed leadership with Cheadle and Rowe, and that goes into the lack of flexibility and the fact that the Secret Service under them wasn't embracing technology, and that's what you saw on July 13th. That was the result.
Based on everything you've seen, Congressman, can you say confidently that Thomas Crooks did, in fact, act alone?
There's no evidence, and it's a very good question. It's a very fair question, and it should be the first question that we asked, and it was. We didn't find any evidence that he conspired with anyone. He was a highly intelligent, very disturbed individual that was looking to make his mark and be a Lee Harvey Oswald, if you will. And, you know, there's reports of, well, he had these encrypted apps. Yeah, I mean, like Signal, you know, WhatsApp. A lot of people have those. Doesn't mean that they're in cahoots with somebody to assassinate the former president. So we just didn't find any evidence, but we did find tremendous evidence that the Secret Service was lackadaisical, complacent, and really, in my view, it was in some sense criminally negligent.
What do you make of these new developments within the last day now that the Secret Service says that they're suspending 6 officers? I mean, do you think that's enough?
I think it's a start. You have to have consequences. If you don't have any consequences, then you're not going to have accountability or proper accountability. Clearly, there were dramatic mistakes that were made. Now, Cheadle did resign. Ron Rowe is now gone. Those are 2 good things. But we also need to make sure that the leadership moving forward embraces these cultural changes that need to happen in relation to training, in relation to technology. And I mean, you got to remember also that 2 weeks after Butler, there was another assassin lying in wait for 12 hours in the bushes off a golf course. He should have been discovered within 20 minutes to an hour, not there for a half a day. And that was, again, because they didn't have the proper technologies at their disposal, and they should have, and they need to moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys did the best investigation you could, it seems like, but I think there still are so many questions that people just don't understand why we don't know in terms of why the failures and why there's just still so little information on the gunman. Some of it just doesn't really add up. Congressman Pat Fallon, really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless.
So while many remember the assassination attempt on President Trump, for one family, today marks 1 year without their father. NewsNation remembers hero Corey Comparator. That's coming up next.
For the rest of my life, I will be grateful for the love shown by that giant audience of patriots that stood bravely on that fateful evening in Pennsylvania. Tragically, the shooter claimed the life of one of our fellow Americans, Corey Comparator. Unbelievable person, everybody tells me.
That was President Trump last year at the Republican National Convention honoring former fire chief Corey Comparator, the one victim who died as a result of the assassination attempt last year. When the shots began ringing out, the 50-year-old father jumped onto his wife and daughter, shielding them from the incoming gunfire. Today, the White House posting on social media a photo of Corey saying, quote, "1 year ago, Corey Comparator died a hero, shielding his family from an assassin's bullet in Butler. His courage, love, and sacrifice will never be forgotten. We honor Corey today and always." David Dutch and James Kompenhaver were also shot and thankfully survived on that day. And it was 1 year ago, July 13th, 2024, a dark day in American history. Really does not matter what side of the political aisle you are on. Political violence and attacks on our politicians is about as un-American as it gets. We must keep our leaders safe. And we can only hope that with what happened in Butler, that it's a wake-up call to the Secret Service and a wake-up call to all of us. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.